Hi guys, welcome back to MDTV Life Coaching Podcasts. Today we're going to be looking at relationship breakdowns and what the signs that a relationship is coming to an end. Now, to start off, I think we need to understand what a healthy relationship looks like, because many of us don't actually know what that looks like. I mean, you've probably had it with your friends or family where they've asked you, "But why do you love that person?" Or what is it about that person that you like? And so many people give such half-assed answers of, "Oh, well, they're just different," or "they're the one," or "they make me smile." And it's just like, yeah, but what else? And that's the fundamental part of it that people are missing. Does that person make you feel seen? Does that person make you feel heard? Does that person make you feel valued? And also, have you had that compatibility discussion? Are you both looking at the same life plan, life goals? And that's not to say that everything needs to match, because otherwise we'd be very boring people. But fundamentals like, does that person want to get married? Does that person want children in the future? Understanding what their views are for the future. And this is where relationships go wrong. So the main kind of signs of like a relationship breakdown is, the first one is loss of connection. So, once upon a time, that person that you loved or lusted for, you'd get excited when that phone used to go off. You'd get excited when they would like your photos, or they would send you, I don't know, maybe like a little cheeky text message. That would, make you excited. You got that butterfly effect, that kind of teenage love feel again. And suddenly that starts to become less and less and less. It starts to become more of a routine of conversation. That spark kind of goes, and it gets kind of tiresome, I guess. It's almost like you're talking to a robot. You can almost predict what they're going to say. And it doesn't just have to be what they're replying either. It could be the topic of conversation. I think a lot of people get so stuck on the framework of like, how was your day? Yeah, it was good. How was yours? Yeah, good. What have you been up to? Sort of almost a format of just boring text. There's no zing to that. There's no excitement. And that's called three-dimensional texting and three-dimensional relationship transfer. So instead of just putting, "Oh, I've been fine," put something about your day. "Oh, I went to the shops with my sister and we brought this. This is my favorite XYZ." That builds like a three-dimensional of what you've done, who you're with, what kind of person you are, what sweets you like. It's giving away little bits of information like that. But when relationships are breaking down, that suddenly goes. And it kind of goes through that cycle of, starts off exciting, starts off butterflies, starts off, 100 miles an hour, and then it drops off. And then it can either go one of two ways. It can go back up to being exciting, or it can just, it becomes routine. Suddenly you're texting your wife, "Oh, what do we need from the shops? What do we need here? What time's this? What time's that?" You've kind of lost that spark. And you've lost that emotional connection with them as well. You're no longer asking about each other's day in the sense of what that person has actually done. It's more of just a gap filler. "Oh, how was your day?" You don't really care for their response. You're not really listening to their response. So that can be the first sign of a relationship breakdown. The second is reduced communication. And there's many elements to this. One can be obviously environmental. You might be staying apart, you might be living apart, it might be a long distance sort of thing. Work might get in the way. People are living busy lives these days, and it's hard to keep on top of that communication. And that's where compromise has to come into place. What are you willing to give up to stay in contact with that person? And putting in that 100% communication. that open communication where you can keep turning up as your authentic self and be accepted. You know, you can go home to your partner and sit there and say, my day was shit. You can go home and say to your partner, I'm really, really low tonight. Or that you're really excited, you're really happy. And instead of them looking at you with a blank stare, you know, they get excited for you. They want to know more about your life. They want to build that life with you. And when we lose that, we lose the care as well. You know, suddenly that person's not interested in your day anymore. They're not interested in what you had for lunch or who you spoke to. And again, I get it. You know, sometimes that conversation can get repetitive, but it's about keeping on top of that person's adaptiveness. People change all the time. And as long as you're keeping on top of how that person is changing and, you know, how they're feeling in the current moment, then you'll be able to compromise, adapt, love them for who they are every single time. It's when we give that up and when we go, I know that person for the rest of my life, they will stay the same. They simply won't. And that's when relationships break down, because you treat that person the same for years and years and years and years and years. And it just becomes so stagnated, it becomes boring. And at the end of the day, people then go, I'm worth more than this. And it will fade away, it will break apart. The next is less intimacy. So that's in the boudoir. And that can be, you know, that can be twofold. That hasn't just got to be a sexual element. It can be stuff like holding hands out in public. It can be stuff like having a kiss. Or it can be, you know, the whole element of having sex with your partner. And suddenly when that's off the cards, or, you know, the excuses start to come that you're too tired and, you know, you're worried about this, that, and that, so that's why you can't do it. Intimacy is incredibly powerful when it comes to a relationship, because it's that kind of that time to be vulnerable. You know, you're exploring each other's bodies, you're doing pleasurable things to each other. And when you truly love someone, that feeling, that emotion that you get with that, you can't beat. So when that goes, it's kind of like, and it's not the fundamental of relationship, it's not the be all and end all, but when that goes, it's kind of like, well, what's next? If we can't be vulnerable with each other and feel comfortable being vulnerable with each other, then what chances do we have in the other life events? What chances do we have at making this work? And intimacy is that time of, it's exploring each other's worlds. You know, stuff like looking into each other's eyes and knowing where to touch and feel and using all your senses. It's an empowering sort of euphoric time for you and your partner. And when that goes, it's kind of like you've lost that spark. You've lost that ability to be vulnerable with each other. And when you can't be vulnerable to the person that you love, it's like, well, who can you be vulnerable to then? The next is kind of twofold. So the first point of it is arguments, and then the other one is no trust. So when we become argumentative with our partners, there's an elephant in the room, right? And unless we're having that adult conversation of what the issue is, these arguments won't go away. And suddenly we're now at war with our partner. We're trying to get one up on each other every time. That might be physical abuse. Unfortunately, you know, domestic abuse does happen. It could be emotional abuse, it could be name calling, psychological, tragic domestic abuse. But usually when domestics happen, they started from a place of love. And these early warning signs, you know, weren't picked up upon. But we suddenly become at war with our partner. The ones that we loved, we're trying to get one up. And that's not to say that every relationship's going to end in domestic violence. You might start arguing over silly things. You might start name calling. You might start being spiteful to each other. And that then leads to no trust. If that person's now being horrible and kind of attacking you, how can you trust them? The one person you want to come home to is now the enemy. Then, what's the point in carrying it on? And that leads people to straying. That's what we're going to move on to. Is that when people aren't getting their needs met at home, when people aren't having the love shown at home, or they're not being appreciated, they're not feeling heard or valued, that is the most vulnerable time of a relationship. Because what happens is that person will subconsciously go out into the world and look for something better. And I use the word subconsciously because that is exactly how it happens. Suddenly in the workplace, someone that shows that little bit of interest into their lives, someone that's a little bit nicer, someone makes them a coffee. When you're used to being not having that at home, you want to cling on to that. You start texting people. You may even start becoming friends with people, and that leads to another thing, and that leads to unfaithfulness sometimes it doesn't. But that is the most vulnerable point of a relationship, is when you're both at the same end of that seesaw and nothing is helping, you're not trying to figure it out. It's kind of like Russian roulette. Who's going to go first? And this leads me on to discussing the gay world and how it links so closely to what I'm discussing. So I'm a gay guy. I came out in 2013. It's not a massive part of my life, I wouldn't say. Yes, I'm gay. I'm proud to be gay, but I don't bang on about it. I don't feel the need to. Others do, which is great. Pride and everything like that, I think is amazing. But yeah, I'm not overly bothered. I don't really believe in labels either. I'm that. And what I've seen in the gay world especially, is quote unquote straight men coming onto apps like Grindr and are using the gay community for easy sex. Yeah. It's accessible, it's quick, it's easy, it's discreet. And that really fascinated me, because you would be so surprised how many of these men are on Grindr, which is fundamentally, let's get it right, is a gay dating app. That is what it is, it's called. It's developed to be a gay dating app. And the statistics behind it are incredible. Now, Grindr won't know fully the figures, because people aren't going to put the truth, are they? But I would, the men that I've met on Grindr or that I've spoken to on Grindr, I would say at least 60% have told me that they've got a girlfriend or a wife and that they have children. And it's heartbreaking. It's like, what are you doing? Where has this element come from? And the statistics are quite interesting. And in terms of being unfaithful and cheating, okay, the statistic is this. If your partner has cheated on you once, you must times that number by 8. Okay. So if you only know about one occasion that your partner has cheated on you, times that by 8, and that's probably more likely the real figure. If there's 3 times that you know, times that by 8. So you're probably looking at about 24 times minimum that this person has done that to you. You've only just known about the odd 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And for women at home, it must be absolutely tragic to not only find out that your partner, who you believed was a straight male, has cheated on you, but also has cheated on you with the man. And that's not disrespectful to men, but it must be difficult to comprehend that during your relationship with your partner, they've not had the courage or they've not felt safe enough to say to you, look, actually, I'm questioning my sexuality or I'm bisexual. They've had to hide it and compress it and live in a dark place where they've had to constantly fight their own head and feel ashamed for the thoughts that they're having, and that interestingly leads on to a debate which I've been doing research into, and that is, if a man has sex with a man, does that make him gay? And some of you are probably listening going, well, yeah, of course it does. And to a certain extent, I agree. But if we unpack it, there's a lot more to it in the psychological aspects and sort of the relationship aspect of it. So another study was done in California that 60 men were questioned. 60 men that identified as heterosexual. So they were straight men. And the question, they kind of come onto this research and said that they were straight, but they slept with men. And their reasons were that of childhood trauma, which is interesting. So I guess in the gay world, it's kind of called like daddy issues. If we've not had that father figure in our lives, we've struggled to make male friends, then we kind of seek that in adulthood. So some of these men that get in relationships with women have had childhood trauma, which they've never processed. They might not have even been aware of it, really. They might not have even been aware that this was affecting them that much until now. The cheating aspect as well. So in a relationship, if a man was to cheat on his wife or girlfriend with another woman, the man would see that as being worse than cheating on the woman with a man. They almost don't see that as cheating because it is with a man. And they will openly admit that they still see it as being straight. Just because they're having sex with a man doesn't mean that they're gay. And this can be broken down into different aspects. So sexuality, right? So what makes your sexuality? There's a lot of elements to sexuality. So you've got your values and beliefs, what you were brought up upon, okay? But there are 3 main elements of your characteristics of sexuality, shall we say. So the first is your sexual orientation. That is what you identify as. What is your sexual orientation? Now, you might say, I'm gay. You could say you're bi. You could say you're lesbian, trans, asexual, and all the rest of them. And the interesting thing is that your sexual behaviors may not display this. So your sexual orientation may be, for example, that you are a straight man. You're a heterosexual male. But your sexual behaviors are with men. And the final element to it is your preferences. So again, your sexual orientation may be that you're a heterosexual male. Your sexual behaviors are that you have sex with men. But then your preferences go back to women. And it's the same with your arousal attraction. There's an arousal and attraction and an erotic attraction. Okay? So we might get aroused as a straight man, they might get aroused by women, but their erotic arousal is by men, which is mind blowing, isn't it? It's really fascinating. But then we go back to the romantic attraction to it all. So again, a straight man may have sex with another man. Okay, doesn't mean that they are romantically attracted to them. And the easiest way to speak about the romantic attraction is, who do you see yourself going home to? Is it a man or is it a woman? And that is fundamental, because going back to, if a straight man sleeps with another man, does that make him gay? And with this kind of argument and this theory, the answer is no, it doesn't. Because just because his sexual behavior shows that he's homosexual, his preferences, sexual orientation, and romantic attraction don't match that. The next is sexual attraction. So your desire to engage with sexual activities with a woman or man, right? So your sexual identity and your sexual behaviors don't always match. For example, I'm a gay man, okay? So my sexual orientation is gay. I have sex with men. I want a romantic attraction to a man. So that kind of like ticks all the boxes of what that is. Now, this is where the argument, not even an argument, it's more of a debate, because, as I said, I don't believe in labels. I think live the life you want to live, love who you want to love. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't have to put yourself into a box or call yourself whatever. This is where it gets tricksy, because my debate would be, and I've had experiences of this before, where you go on Grindr and you meet a bisexual man who says that they're bisexual. This was my story. We're calling Boy X for discretional purposes. So Boy X said that he had a girlfriend for however long. They'd had a child, and Boy X had split up from this lady. He was now openly bisexual, and he was out kind of on the playing field, testing the waters, if it were. Now, at the time, I was unaware of what was actually going on. So he led me on this merry dance, basically. And it turned out that he hadn't split up from his girlfriend, and it had all been a big lie. And it was a massive internal battle of, well, I should tell her. I really should tell her. She's been lied to. She's the true victim here. He runs away to go on Grindr to take advantage of the gay community, creates emotional bonds with them, you know, creates that romantic attraction, I would say, that sexual attraction is there, and then goes, oh, well, I'm straight, actually. And it goes back to that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't repetitively do this to gay men on on apps like Grindr. It's just not fair. In terms of, not only you're lying to yourself, you're lying to your girlfriend, you're lying to your child. And at what point do you have to question your sexuality and say, actually, maybe I am bisexual or maybe I am gay? Because if you're intentionally going on a gay dating app to find men to sleep with, yes, it's an indication of your current relationship with your wife not working out or your girlfriend not working out, but that doesn't excuse it. And that's the difficult part for me, and that's what always frustrated me, is that these men don't see it as an issue. Phrases that would come out was like blissfully unaware. She doesn't have to know. And it's just like, people become lost in this world of fantasy. People lose their morals and values. And it goes back to the relationship breakdown, that the signs were there from the very beginning. And now they've got themselves tangled in this world of confusion and risk and hurt. They're hurting everyone that they have that connection with. And the ones that are in their lives permanently, their girlfriends and children, what a devastation it is for them. It's kind of like you've been loving a phantom. You've been loving someone who's just lied to you and lied to you and lied to you. And then they play the victim card, that they want pity on them because, and this is the point I'm getting to. I feel sometimes this debate of, oh, I'm straight but I sleep with men, I think that is a ticket out of cheating. I really do think that some men will use that as a way out. Instead of going, actually, do you know what? I do think I'm bisexual or I am gay. They go, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, I was just messing about. Which, yeah, I don't understand. Because my moral values, is that love is love. I believe in monogamy. Polyamorous relationships are great if that's your thing. That's amazing. And if you can manage a polyamorous relationship, absolutely hats off to you. For me, I like monogamy. But it's the disruption of these relationships. And that's why these men go on to Grindr. Because as I said before, when you get to that point where you're at war with your partner, that is the most vulnerable time of that relationship. That is when people will start straying. That is when people will start planning affairs, will start texting people, will start sending pictures. And I would just say, if you have any doubt with your current partner or boyfriend or girlfriend, have it out with them. Please, please, please have it out with them. Ask questions, because your gut instinct usually isn't wrong. Don't leave it too late. And that's not to say that people that have been cheated on, they're to blame. Not at all. It's disgusting, and it must be horrible, horrible, horrible. I can only imagine what that must feel like. But if you do think something's going on, and it's safe to do so, challenge them. If it's not safe to do so, get support. Get support through whatever way you can. And same with domestic violence as well. Go to DAVS, go onto the National Domestic Helpline, go to the police if you can. Again, it's all about timing and it's about being safe. Keep yourself safe always. And just make sure that you look after yourselves and know your worth. Don't let someone's behaviours change your morals or values just because you think it's how it should be, or you think that's all you're worth, because you're not. That was just a very, comparative thing that I know, and being from the LGBT community, it goes on a lot. But it's all sort of interlinked in a way. It doesn't have to be the LGBT community. It can be, straight couples that are falling apart. Suddenly someone's sleeping with someone's best friend and it's all gone wrong because that vulnerable period of time, people just lost connection. People lost the ability to talk. People lost the care for each other. And when you're at that point, you have to ask the question, why are we still doing this? And if you are at that point and you're struggling and you're feeling really down, that's okay. We're starting that grieving cycle. And if you need any more support, the previous 2 podcasts have been about falling in love with the heartbreak. It speaks about narcissistic relationships. It speaks about why we love that heartbreak era so much. Listening to the sad songs and moping about and really getting in our feels. Why, A, that's healthy to do, but B, how to moderate that. And I also speak about the grief cycle in my 2nd podcast. So go and give that a listen, because it's not just about death. It's about, helping yourself to get through a breakup, whether that's a marriage, relationship, someone's cheated on you. It's sad, it's raw, but you will get through it. I can promise you that you will get through it. And it may take time, and you may need to learn to love yourself again. But with my sessions and my work, you will get there. And if you need any more support, please do go on over to mdtblifecoaching.com. If you take a scroll down, I've got loads of resources on there. And also you can book some sessions as well. So thank you for listening, guys. I'll be back soon with another podcast. I'm going to be covering depression next, what depression looks like, how we can manage depression, living with depression, and what are the signs and symptoms. So have a lovely rest of your day. Have a nice evening. And remember to relax.